Hello and welcome back to honestly my favorite duo. Don't tell Greg about that. But I have myself, Carter Elliott of Sleepers Media, and I am here with my good friend Lukas Harkins of Heat Check. And we are here today to preview what will be, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It'll be the most fun game to watch of the weekend. And the reason for
Oh
that
yeah,
is,
it could very well be.
it will be because there's nothing that I personally love more than a good three ball. It was invented for a reason. It's the greatest line in all of my opinions. If I rank my top five lines, the 3-point line is easily top three. But we'll go ahead and get right to the game here. Lucas, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Every time I took the ball to the paint, I got blocked. So stay beyond the 3-point arc. It's a good strategy.
Yeah, see, I didn't do that. I just chose to shoot threes, even though I was taller than anybody. But this isn't about us. We are here to preview the matchup of my Creighton Blue Jays, my preseason Creighton Blue Jays, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Two teams who are all about, I mean, honestly, just getting shots up, and a plethora of them, a lot of them, and a lot of them coming from three. Lucas, what do you think about this matchup, just surface level, before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of the matchups and what this means for both teams?
Yeah, it is kind of a pretty meaningful early game. I mean, obviously, it's two teams that were top 10 in the net coming into the week, but it's also a couple teams that could really use wins right now. I mean, Alabama's coming off. I mean, they've alternated wins or losses for 6 straight games, and Creighton's coming off another one of those nights where nothing really fell, and they got really beaten by a significant margin for the second time this year, and it's kind of shown a little bit of what the warts can be when those shots don't fall for that group. I think it's going to be the kind of game that both teams kind of need, especially for Creighton as it is right now. That the non-conference resume they've put together is rather pedestrian for a group that came into the year as a preseason top 10 team and has the talent to be a top 10 team and is still regarded. I think they're still top 5 in the BPI. Like they're still really highly regarded and I think deservedly so. But their resume doesn't really speak to that yet. And I think that a home win over Alabama can go a long way for them.
Yeah, and you got to factor in the fact that they are getting Alabama at home too. Like this is a game that if they are in a bounce back spot, which I think they are,
For sure.
I think it's kind of the chips are falling for them to bounce back in this spot because look, when you look at it, Alabama has, I mean, they struggled this season, to be honest with you. I think they had a little bit of higher expectations, haven't necessarily reached those in many people's opinions. Obviously they had the home loss to Clemson earlier in the year. Clemson's a really good basketball team. I'm not downing them.
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
downing
part of
them
it. It's
for
like
this. Yeah, they
teams going on. The day
right.
the days have gone on and the Clemson loss just looks better.
Right, and they lose to Purdue and
Tight.
on a neutral site game. That's nothing to hang your head about. But they're having these opportunities, and you just feel like they're going to get one of these games. They are eventually. They have
For sure.
Arizona next, so they have another opportunity to get a game. But this Creighton team at home against an Alabama team that I think struggles to defend basically the style that Creighton plays. I think they will struggle to do that. But also a part of me thinks that if they're going style for style, it doesn't typically, at least historically speaking, I feel like if Alabama plays against a team that goes Alabama style, Alabama usually comes out on top. But I think the talent on this team is just a little bit different. Like the Brandon Millers aren't walking through the door for this team.
Yeah, I think partially that. I think the offensive playing style is pretty similar. Defensively, no one allows fewer threes in the country than Creighton does. I think they're number one in the country. Teams are attempting over only a fourth of their shots from deep this season. And the other thing is Alabama's getting 23% of its points at the free throw line so far this season, and that's where Creighton really thrives on defense. I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner has been, I mean, a menace at being able to block shots and not commit fouls throughout his career. We're now looking at a Creighton team that's 10 games into the season and no one's come close to double bonus against them. They've maxed out 8.5 fouls. They've only 2 teams have attempted even a 1-1 against Creighton so far this year. It's going to be challenging to get to the free throw line. And that's where part where Alabama's really been able to thrive when the threes haven't really been falling. They've been able to get to the line, and that's something that Creighton does such a good job of protecting against. So I think that's where the edge is. As odd as that seems, I think it's Creighton's defense that gives them a little bit of an edge.
That is an interesting point to look at because to me, the losses that Creighton has had this season, it seems that they've got somewhat out toughed, I think, or not out toughed in a sense, but
You can't
when
shoot
this
in those games.
yeah, when this team can't shoot, they shut down. And
Yeah.
that's what bothers me with the Creighton team. They have actually a style, I think, that is tailor made to get back into games if you are down. They can fill it up in
Yeah.
a hurry, but they just seem to get down by 10 points or 12 points, or they did against Colorado State or they did against UNLV, and they can't string together stops and makes together, and don't end up winning those games. Now, one thing that I am interested to see in this game is I feel like because of Creighton's style this season and because all the threes they're taking, they sometimes forget about Kalk down low, and they sometimes forget about what he can do down low, and that causes him to float a little bit. And obviously, he's going to get his stats. He's coming off a 20, I believe, a 22-11 game against UNLV. He kind of did his part, but I have watched Alabama a solid amount this year. But one thing I noticed is that when that Clemson front court wanted to get their way, they went at Grant Nelson. They went at, the Pringles of the team. They went right at him. Obviously, Edey's an immovable force. He's 7'4", but Edey was down low doing what he needed to do, and he was down there doing all the dirty work. I think that Kalk could have an advantage down there, and I think it'll behoove Creighton to maybe make an emphasis on getting him the ball down low, putting pressure on those guys, maybe even get him in foul trouble. And if he's able to get it going, I think that'll open up for other guys on the team. And then the obvious needs to be stated is that when you look at Creighton's losses, Trey Alexander has played not even a sugarcoat. He's played horrific. Like, it's just not Trey. It's just not Trey Alexander. I mean, he's having 1 for games and, minimal, a lot of turnovers, minimal assists, minimal rebounds. What do you think it is with Trey Alexander, this year in these losses? Because it just seems like he started off the year super hot, and then he's just having these super, super highs and then the super, super lows at the Colorado State and the UNLV game.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an adjustment into stepping into that role more this season, for one, and for two, he needs the running mate alongside him. And Baylor Shireman wasn't there against UNLV, and he wasn't there against Colorado State either. In those games, Shireman was 5 for 18 from 3. One of them needs to be on. And I think that's part of where I come from with Creighton coming into this game is the odds that Shireman and Alexander have back-to-back, since this game's coming off that UNLV loss. The odds that they both have back-to-back odd shooting nights, I think, is pretty low. They're too good of shooters to do that. I think the key for Alexander is to get that perimeter help. But as you pointed out before that, Kalkbrenner has been the linchpin to this team, I think, for years now. Mm-hmm. I think it really needs to start with him more than having him be a key cog. I think it needs to start there.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that coming out early at home, kind of doing the classic assert your dominance thing
in what might be one of the most underrated home venues in the country.
Oh, 100%. You gotta capitalize on you gotta capitalize on home court advantage. Now, on the other side, this Alabama team, you have the guys like Estrada playing well. Mark Sears is
a bucket.
Is an absolute bucket.
Absolute bucket.
Grant Nelson is leading this team in rebounds by about 7 a game, pouring in 13 points. Has struggled a little bit physically on the defensive end, but you kind of expected that, maybe coming from a lower level. That was somewhat of expected. What do you think it is about this Alabama team, or what do you think can take them to the next level? Because you look at the backcourt, they can play with any backcourt in the country. Like Sears and Estrada are great. Nelson is talented. They have other guys on this team. What do you think it is about this Alabama team that they can kind of reach this? Like, will it take a win like this against Creighton on the road to kind of get them there? And how would they kind of get over that hump, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they've played some of these games tight. Like they played Clemson relatively tight for most of that game. Like they closed out as an 8-point game. They played Purdue tight. Like, I think they're going to get those to eventually get one of these games, whether that's Creighton, whether it's Arizona, whether it's the unbelievable number of opportunities that come in SEC play. It's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be on the level defensively they've been. I think that's the holdup, is where they can be defensively. And you mentioned not having the Brandon Millers out there. And obviously they have the scoring this year, but I'm not sure they have the versatility defensively that they've needed in the past few years.
Right. I mean, you even go back, it's a couple of years ago, obviously, but you just always remember that one defensive player who's just like holding things down, for whether it be like the Herb Jones of the world, or, they had guys like Bediako down low who are, holding down, and like, for all the crap that Bediako got, when people went to the hole, they thought twice, or he was sending it the other way. They don't really necessarily have that presence this year. And it invites teams to attack the rim and go to the rim and, either finish and or get fouled. But there's something in me that I just can't shake, that Alabama's going to get one of these games. They played some really good teams close enough. And
yeah.
And eventually they got to get over the hump, kind of, in a sense. And I mean,
it just feels like this is the bad time, doesn't it? If Creighton had won against UNLV and did so convincingly, I think you could hear me very easily talking myself into Alabama winning this game. It's just so hard to imagine Creighton having such what really would be like. I know that it's still a loss to a really good team if they were to lose to Alabama, but it would feel like a letdown to lose it at home in what is such a big opportunity to get a resume booster when they kind of need one.
Right, in this spot. Honestly, not to look ahead for them, but if Arizona is to beat Purdue, then Bama could kind of come into that next game against Arizona, and then maybe it's a letdown spot there. But like, you're getting a Creighton team that honestly blew a game against UNLV, and everyone in the country, like me and you, are talking about it. Everyone we know in the college basketball space is talking about what's wrong with Creighton. Were we wrong about Creighton?
We were talking about it on the same night of Northwestern. Like, we were still talking. We were still talking about Creighton's loss.
Right. So it's they have a chance at home to send a message. And I think,
let's not forget, Alabama's an SEC team. So
yeah,
it's not like they're the Mountain West. Like, if this was Air Force, I think I'd have more issues for Creighton.
the Creighton Mountain West thing, it actually, if the committee wants to do something when Creighton actually does make the tournament, they match them up against a Mountain West team, would just objectively be hilarious and would get a good laugh out of me, for sure.
I'm 100% on board.
Kind of want to see them face New Mexico if it gets to that point. But all right, I think we've gone back and forth here about which way we feel about it. Obviously, we have to end with a prediction. I can't remember. Did you pick? I think the last preview we were on,
I picked Nova. You picked UCLA.
Okay, so you're 1-0 on me. There we go. All right, that's great to know. I'm looking to even it up right here. Unless we go the same way, which way are you going in this game? And can I get a score prediction as well?
Yeah, I'm going Creighton in the high 80s, like 88,
like high 80s. Okay. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to even up the record because I am on Creighton with you. I think it'll be in the 80s. I want to say it's going to be a one possession game too. I think I'd give like Creighton wins 83-81. I think I feel good. I feel good about that. They got to bounce back. They're at home. I
really don't know what they do defensively on Mark Sears, if they're going to throw Alexander at him, Sharman at him, Carabello at him. Ashworth will get some minutes. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I feel like they will be able to find a way. And for the games that Trey Alexander's had bad, I don't think he's going to put two straight awful games together.
I think that's where it's tricky. It's just it's hard. It's so hard to imagine Creighton has back-to-back tough games from the floor from their two best shooters.
They're too good offensively.
I think they're too good.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I'm coming from. It. All right, a little bonus thing here to our preview that I have to ask you, because I was on the review of the or the recap of the UNLV Creighton game, and I asked Greg a question. I would actually like to get your opinion on this. Does Creighton, were we wrong about the addition by subtraction thing for Nebhard and Kaluma leaving? Because I feel like if you put Kaluma on this team, it would really, really help them right now. And I think that, maybe Ashworth wasn't the seamless transition, or there's a bigger gap between him and Nebhard than we maybe thought.
I think it was just going to take time. I mean, I think that you look at like Nemhard and Kaluma weren't just guys who were 1-year rentals last year. Like, they came in with a year of experience in the system. They played with Alexander. They played with Shireman before. And I think that getting the time, I think, is what's going to take time, especially for Ashworth. He's a vet. He's coming into a situation that he hasn't been in really recently. I mean, he was the guy at Utah State. Right. This is different. It's an adjustment period. And I think that he hasn't really had a bad start, but it's going to take some time, I think, to come into what's going to be a tertiary role at best. I mean, he's going to be behind Shireman. He's going to be behind Alexander and Cookbrenner when he's on the floor. And I think it's finding a balance there. And quite frankly, Creighton is a team that can afford that balance, because no matter, like, they're an NCAA tournament team. It's really hard to imagine that not being the case. So really, they're not a team that should be fighting on the bubble in February. They're a team that's going to have 3 months to figure it out. It can work it slowly.
Right. And honestly, based on last year, they did kind of figure it out towards the end. But that had more to do kind of with Kalkbrenner being out. But
yeah, Kalkbrenner was hurt, but they still lost 6 in a row.
Right. Yeah. So, and they ended up figuring it out and playing really good basketball. So, I mean, this Creighton team is going to be one that I won't be able to shake ever, to be honest with you, just because of the way they can put the ball in the basket.
I don't care if they fall to a 7 seed. I'm picking them to the Sweet 16. I just don't care.
Yeah, true. And I also feel sorry for that 10 seed, which at this point, I pray it's Michigan State. But everyone should definitely tune into this game. I think it's going to be one that's going to be enjoyable to watch. A lot of basketball.
It's going to be a hell of an evening game on what is going to be a hell of a Saturday.
Oh, it's going to be a Saturday that we deserve after this week. You know,
yeah.
I don't mean to be one of those guys, but it just wasn't the best of games. Shout out to Chicago State for making it fun, but it just wasn't the best.
Yeah, shout out Wesley Cardette.
Yeah. Oh man, what a bucket. Outdoing Boo Booey. But for Carter Elliott, myself, for Lukas Harkins, thank you all for tuning in. We will hop back on here for the recap after the game. Hopefully we'll be recapping a Creighton win where both of us are right and it's a high scoring game. Be sure to check out the channel and we will see y'all after the game.